Hey guys, and good morning. I'm here
Hello.
with Shauna, who's wait over here. She's over here. She's over here. It's weird because she's over here on this monitor and she's over here on your
Oh,
screen. Shauna is a longtime buddy of mine. We've known each other for a few years now, and she is an animation person like me. We're both animation people, although I think she's better, but that's okay.
you're sweet.
Uh, well, actually, I don't know if I could render Donald Duck. Every time you post things on on Facebook, I'm like sitting there going, "Yeah, no, that looks like Disney did it, and I can't do that." It always looks like it's my style. You know what I mean? I can always look at it. I'm like, it's close, but not quite. You know. So
Okay.
this whole show is dedicated to animation. We're going to talk about animation. I actually was thinking about bringing in paints and cells and things like that. Have you, by the way, have you been able to bring up? Can you see it up on your monitor?
I am, but it's a little distracting because there's also a lag from that which isn't linking up to your voice, which also has me lagging behind it. So it's like this trifecta of lag that's just very distracting that isn't going to have me focus on you whatsoever. So I'm just going to have that minimized.
There you go. Good morning, Donald. Guest is Shauna. I should actually put your name up there, but I didn't add that because that's an extra little doohickey that I have to add here now. When I use OBS, this is kind of the way I can do OBS and kind of kludge this to make it all work, but it requires layers of things. So
Yeah,
it's kind of confusing.
yeah. OBS is awesome. I use that for a lot of recording stuff too. So good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, I love OBS. There's no complaints,
Mhm.
but it's the Linux of.
Yeah, that's true. It's
You
the
have to
Linux of
make sure it's
recording
all
systems.
built before the show starts.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to do this for a while because Pepper has been coming in, and I do shows with Pepper DeLuca, who
hmm
is a local artist as well, and we'll
Oh,
work on
pepper's great.
yeah, we'll work on Fridays and stuff. But the problem with Pepper, of course, is that that you know sometimes not the problem with Pepper. The problem with Pepper is that Pepper. No, I'm just kidding. Um,
There's not
the,
enough salt with the
there's
pepper.
not enough salt with that pepper.
hmm
The problem I have with that particular broadcast is that it looks like Restream has a problem running my opening and closing credits. They stall, and
Yeah.
so my 30-second opening credits ends up being a minute and 15 seconds long because it keeps stopping and then and starting and stopping and starting and stopping all the way through. So I've been
hmm
meaning to kind of figure out a way to dual screen like this on OBS for a while. So
Oh, definitely.
yeah, yeah. Pepper was
Uh,
popping paint, says Donald.
Ooh.
He was.
Pepper's paint is
He
awesome.
he mixed up a special blend of paint for my character, my main character for my comic book, so
Ooh.
that whenever I paint in watercolors, she's got a consistent skin tone. Even if
Did
I'm
uh did,
5 years
did
down, I don't have to keep remixing her skin tone. So
oh, yeah.
that's kind of cool.
uh did the paint slice suggest to you work out for you, by the way, or
Yes,
cool?
but that was sort of so. For those of you who are at home, Shauna works at Gyrie's, and that is a paint
Nice.
store which I go to a lot. And so, and it actually was a funny story how this kind of came about. There was a lady who worked there named Amy, and when I went there, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with watercolors. And Amy's like, well, let me get you started. So here's all the things you need to know. And I'm, what's the difference between hard, a cold press and warm press? I don't even know these things, right? And so she put me on the right path. I'm very much a person who needs like to be free of complication when it comes to the creativity side. If there are screw ups or things that need to be prepped or whatever, then whenever I decide I'm going to paint a picture, I get all caught up in the details and I spend 5 hours prepping my paints. And then that was all the time I had, and I didn't paint anything. So it's very important for me to just be able to pull the paper, put the paper down, grab the paints, put some water in it, and go. That's a very important thing. So, which was one of the reasons why I've been saying, as I've been saying to you, I need the skin tone for all the characters. One bottle for each character. So,
Exactly. Otherwise, it's just going to be super crazy to try and mix it up at that point.
right,
Just
I'll be
continue.
mixing them, and that's not the right color, and this is not the right shade. And ooh, this is a pretty color I made. Oh,
Yeah,
this is
but this
also a
isn't the
pretty
right
color I
color.
made. And then before I know it, the day is gone, and I have mixed a whole bunch of really pretty colors. And that's what I did today. Well, I appreciate that, Donald. Thank you very much. He says I'm OCD with the details, but my end product
Oh,
is awesome. So,
much appreciated.
yeah, well, it's also one of the reasons why I stay digital. But I really like the tactile feel of a physical piece, and so one of the things that I want, and watch this transition, watch me make this transition. One of the things I like to do is work on actual cellophane and work on cells like the old
Hmm.
animators used to do. And so, but that makes a literal physical piece. So there really is an honest to goodness piece there. I actually have a piece. Shauna, since I have dominated this conversation, do you want to tell people about your work and what you do?
So I was just letting you talk. I was trying to be like a good, oh yeah, listen to the host. Uh, so what I tend to do is I tend to dabble in a bit of everything style wise. Um, I'm doing this thing this month called Toontober, where I've been dabbling in the different animation styles and trying to draw them as true to form as possible. But outside of that, I tend to just draw it's like a weird mixture of Western and Eastern animation styles mixed with my own type of style as well. It's kind of hard to explain, but a lot of people seem to identify with it. So that's how I tend to draw. And I grew up watching Disney. I grew up watching all the different animations. It's the typical beats: one, two, three. Watch Disney, Don Bluth, Tim Burton, all the other stuff growing up,
Right?
as you would find typically. Um, but I don't really know how to add to that. It's just I like to draw what I like to draw. So
Well, I
yeah.
think that's a lot of the way that um, that all of us got into it is the same way. Just we started drawing what we saw, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I learned at a young age that, hey, if I can't get that, I can draw that to have it. So that's what I based my techniques around is replicating what I saw so I could have a copy of that in my own home without having to pay a lot for it because I kind of grew up a little bit on the poorer side, so I couldn't afford a lot of stuff. So you improvise.
right, right. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
Where can they find you if they're looking for you?
Oh, so I've been kind of under the radar.
So they can't
Uh,
find you.
I mean, I used to have a Facebook page, which I still do, but I don't update it. You can find me on my Shawnamora account, which is my regular account. I pretty much post publicly on there. I also have Mora under dash Shauna on Twitter. I've been posting a lot there too. Uh, I can get you the links to share. I don't know how to share my stuff. I've just been so out
Did
of
you
loop
say
with
that?
social media stuff.
I no, I get that. Is that on Twitter?
Yes, on Twitter. It's
Okay.
MOURA under dash SHANA.
I'm adding it now on top of our faces.
Cool.
So this is fun because we're broadcasting while I'm adding all of this on our faces. It's a little underprepared, but that's all right. There we go.
There I
Now it
am.
says your name, so they can find you. I
The
actually was
lag
looking
also
you up on
syncs
my
up
phone
really
so I could
well.
spell your name correctly.
Let's see. Shauna Mora at yeah, Mora Shauna. Yep, perfect, perfect. I
So
also love how the syncing up of my face versus my conversation kind of matches up really well.
yeah, and then when you're watching, her name is in the lights. Yes, yes, yes. We were working on this. So Originally, I was trying to get Shauna to join me through Restream like we do with Pepper, but there was a problem with it and she couldn't get it to work. So this is us instantly improvising as fast as plausible.
Yes.
So we were
Yes.
improvising quickly on this one, try to kind of get it to go. So there is that. Oh well.
If and when I come back onto the show, I'll definitely be better prepared. I'll have my laptop, which has OBS, which I can actually do the actual web recording versus over the phone. So yeah.
See, now that's one step more advanced than me, so you'll have to teach me how to
Oh,
link both OBSs to make them work together because I actually do not know how to do that. So that's awesome.
okay.
So
Cool.
that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. Okay, so we were talking about animation and how animation is done. Um, I actually learned how to classically animate when I went to college in '92, and that was kind of cool. But now of course we don't do that. Back then we didn't have computers that were powerful enough to do the stuff that Photoshop was only a year old at that point in time, and so
And it's come so far.
yeah, it really has. And I remember Photoshop finally having layers. Like it didn't have layers to begin with. You just kept working on the background layer, and that was it. And I
Yeah, what
remember
a
the
revelation.
first year. Yeah, well, and I looked at it and I was like, who's going to use this? And then my buddy said, imagine us doing that as cells. And I,
Ah,
like, a light went on. Boing! And I was like, oh, you know what kind of damage we can cause if we,
all the layers.
So, back in those days, we did things on flimsy pieces of cellophane, like this right
Mhm.
here. And it's transparent so you can see through it. And then what we would do is paint on the back of them, like this. So we'd trace the piece
Mhm.
on reverse. So you'd print out or in our case, we draw the image backwards, and
Yep.
then you'd lay it down, and then you put the cell over it, and then you trace it on the back here, or we would also trace in the front and then paint on the back, depending on which way you go.
To make it pop more. Yeah.
Right. So then you'd
Old school
paint to the
animation
back of the
techniques.
cell, and you have to paint from the details out. So you start with the details, you paint all the details, and then you move out each layer. So,
Yep.
but this is a cell I made in 1992. So this has been hanging out with me for a very long time. I'm a fan of Harlock. So um, he was a cell I made for myself. All of the
That
cells
is
for all the
really
animations we did are
cool.
long since dead. But
That that's really pretty. That's super nice.
I love doing that. I've actually
Oh,
thought about the idea of doing some of my current work as cells. And just going out and getting transparencies for overhead projectors. You know what I mean? And just doing the
yeah.
same technique. You draw on one side, flip it, paint the back, flip it again, and then maybe offset it from a background so that whenever you
Yeah.
frame it up, you can
That
look
would be
and you'll sit there
wild.
and do the parallax thing as you walk by it. Wouldn't that be neat? I think that'd be
It
fun.
would. And you would have that subtle shadow to it too, like a lot of the old animation cells from like Bronze Age and Silver Age of Disney. Like you would just have that really nice aesthetic if you wanted to go that route.
I
You
think
could
it'd be a
also tie it
great
in with
aesthetic.
like a theme of one of your storylines for your comics. Like, oh, this is actually on a TV show, but it's in comic formats.
Right? Right?
Ah, so
Like,
many things.
yeah, it's so much fun. I mean, animation it's come an amazing distance. It's
Oh
funny
yeah,
to
so
think
nice.
that we've had a renaissance in animation, the likes of which hadn't been seen in 100 years. Um, because the first real renaissance of animation was Disney changing everything. You know, putting sound in, making color. You know, all of those
And
things were
they
epic.
actually opened up the door to have a full-length animated feature with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. That was their first full length, and that was the first full-length animated film that anyone had really even done. That was beyond like 5 minutes.
Right? Right? Exactly. I mean, it's like, and that's so interesting to me. And then you think about things that changed animation.
Hmm.
South Park changed animation. I mean,
Yeah.
they started out as actual paper cutouts and stuff like that. But they
And
only
then the
lasted for one
transition.
season, I think, before they moved to Flash,
Yes.
which
Yeah,
was
they could only handle doing stop motion for one season, and I praise them for that because I couldn't even handle it for that long.
I did do a stop motion animation a la um, Monty Python in college.
Oh,
And we
really?
actually cut out all of the little things and stuck them
Oh,
on there and had the camera mounted upward. But it was a point and shoot. So since it was a point and shoot, the color gradients flicker and the colors change
oh,
hue between shots because point and shoots have to like auto adjust every picture. I've often thought now that I've got a professional camera,
you would be
I
able to
know
do
I
it
am
better.
just such a sucker for this, but I've often thought about doing that again.
But would you have the dedication to do it? I did one scene for paper cutout stop motion animation, and I'd set it up perfectly, and then someone came in and sneezed and blew it all out of the way, and I was so done with the medium, so I haven't touched it since then.
Yeah, it was in my. I had a little teeny studio apartment, and it was in my kitchen, and we had set it all up, and we banished the cats, and because we knew that would be exactly what happened, is Luna would jump up onto this. I've talked many times about my cat Luna, who was named after Luna from Sailor Moon. So I mean, she was all
No.
black, and so that was when I named her. I was like, she looks like Luna, and you know, turned out she didn't have the personality of Luna, but that's okay.
Yeah,
Who knows? You never know what a cat will do. And nowadays we
exactly.
have visits from George, who's our current cat. Although I think he's napping at this moment because he's a kitten.
Oh,
And so kittens do the run at 150% until they run out of energy and then just fall over right there.
my
And
cat, who's 2 years old, does that. He runs 100 miles an hour and then he'll like rest and then like jet off again somewhere.
right? And you're like, "Are you okay?"
Well,
Oh man. Anyway, but yeah, stop motion animation is a completely different medium which requires a lot of. I think that's one of those things. George is cute and mischievous, says Donald. He gets up right here on the table, right in front of my monitor,
yeah.
and what you can't see aiming this way is right here is my XP Pen 22E, which is
Hmm.
my current monitor. It's a 22-inch monitor, and I love it because it's not a touchscreen. That's so useful. Because I really, same thing. I don't like to prep any more than I absolutely have to because sometimes I'll get
Exactly.
like this idea, and so I like the idea. I just pull my pen out and just start drawing right here. I just don't have to get the gloves so that I don't touch the screen. That's ridiculous. So, but yeah, there have been a number of different mediums, and I was thinking about this. It's funny how having a kid kind of changes your perspective on the universe. Um, because I tell him that our culture doesn't respect uh, talent as much as they do stick to itness. I
Yes.
mean, they talent's impressive. People are always, oh, you're very talented. But the truth is, nothing impresses them more than realizing this thing took you 500 consecutive hours where you didn't have to, you couldn't sleep because
Or
something
or the
happened or whatever.
or the flip side where it's like, oh, you got this done in like 2 weeks. This is like 10 minutes worth of stuff. Well, right on. Good for you, bud. We'll hire you on right now.
Right?
Meanwhile, you didn't sleep at all, and you got the coffee shakes because you spent so many hours just jamming on this thing.
Right, right. I, and the kind of, and though I totally agree, I think I'm going a different direction. Sorry. Um, I'm not actually trying to shut you down because that's absolutely true. But that leads us to a different thread. We'll get back to it. I promise.
Oh, definitely.
Um,
We'll circle around with it. We'll put a
we'll
pin
flip
in it.
back around on that one because that's one of
Yeah.
my big gripes as well. But I do think that when you look at things that are animated, somebody, you look at it, oh, that's kind of cool, and then it's like a grenade. It goes off 5 minutes later where you realize, wait a minute, that took you 500 hours. You know, you know, it's that's the one. That's the things that I think our culture really does like to admire. Is the ones where they start by thinking, "Oh, that's neat," and then they go, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait, wait."
Yeah, wait a second. This is very fluid and this is beautiful. How long did it take you to do this?
Right? And so that's one of the things that I do like about things like doing stop motion, claymation, um, things like that. The old traditional cell to cell, right? These guys,
Hmm.
where we were actually going cell to cell on this, and it was, you know, one frame at a time. People people then hear the numbers and they start going, wait, what? You know, when you think generally Studio Ghibli ran at 24 frames a second, which means that every second of animation had 24 individual pictures. And you start
And that's
thinking
not
about
even
that,
taking into account how you pan paint everything too.
right? So it's 24 individual hand painted pictures put on there. And that's just for 1 second. You know, and you think about these movies are 120 minutes long, you know, times 60. That's
Yeah,
how many,
times 24, and
right?
you have so many different frames that you don't even think. Like the normal person wouldn't even think of how you just break that down and how long it really takes. It's like, oh, this is the end result. It's beautiful. I love it. Mwah.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I have another movie, please?
Yeah,
I
give,
mean, you know,
give me
this
like
took no
six
time,
months.
right? So that's always something that fascinates me in a lot of ways. Um, but I think that we do admire time spent,
Hmm.
and I think it's cool that now you and me together could team up to write a 2 hour movie and probably do it inside a year because of the
Oh, probably.
technology. And the technology has definitely put put a definite push to that. Um, for those of you who don't know out there, I worked on a Star Trek fan film called Star Trek Farragut, which is with John Broughton, and they did 2 animated episodes in the style of Filmation's Star Trek from 1973, and I was on their animation team, and there were only 5 of us, and we managed to do 2 30-minute episodes inside a year with me being in Japan, you know, because of this, because of the technology that was involved. I didn't have to sit there and hand paint my cells. I just hit the fill button, you know? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, Donald's saying that he knew a guy who drew Woody Woodpecker hundreds of times a week for cartoons.
Oh, whoa.
Right?
That's iteration. That's dedication right there.
It really is. And there's a certain amount of, I wonder if we're not missing skills because of this,
Hmm.
you know?
Oh yeah, there's totally a translation. There's whenever you throw out something you want, then you you lose those skills. Like say you I forgot where I was going with that.
And you're like, I headed out of this. I never do that, Shauna. That's totally cool.
No, I
Um,
totally agree. You
but
lose
no, I
you
think
lose
you're right.
skills.
I think you're right. When you evolve, we get faster, we get more efficient. Um, but I wonder if we're not losing some skills. And I've thought about that as well when we move to a lot of 3D animated stuff now.
Hmm.
I mean, like you look at Star Trek Lower Decks, let's say as an example, that's a 2D animated mostly show. I mean, it's mostly done in 2D, but even then, it's computer assisted.
Well, it's also highly stylized too.
Right,
Anything that's 2D has the ability to be highly stylized. When you transition over to 3D, that's where you lose that stylization. It has to be easy to animate.
right,
It has to have round curves, it has to have the easy flow, and just a lot of easy points. And that's where you lose a lot of the genuineness of animation.
right, right. And I think that's something that, I mean, I was thinking about that. What was I doing? I was doing something last night where I was playing with, I've got a new program that allows me to do animation in somewhat real time now. I finally got
Ooh.
uh, I finally got a graphics card that's hot enough to be able to do animation in real, not real time, but you could rig it while it's looping the animation. You move the
Oh, that's
hand and
awesome.
it'll loop the hand, and then you move the other part and it loops that part too into the animation while it's running the animation. So you're able to do
Mhm.
real time corrections to your 3D
That's
animation.
amazing.
It is really cool. Um, but I was messing with it last night, and of course, it does all of these tricks, ease and easing in and easing out. And I
Hmm.
realized that people don't move like that. So I'm sitting there trying to kill all the ease out of this. And
Hmm.
computers keep injecting ease. For those of you that don't know what ease is, that's when you have what we call a keyframe. My hand is here. And then you have another keyframe. My hand is here. Then you have a keyframe where my hand is here. And what the computer will do is speed up and then slow down. And then
Hmm.
speed up and then slow down. And it's what makes the computers look so weird if you take that ease, because we don't actually do that. And
Yeah.
it, especially
And
since
if
I
there
was
is
moving
any ease,
eyes.
then it's if there is any, then it's very just it's quick. It's like it's not a drawn out process.
Right, right. And I was realizing that even with 3D animation, there's a skill. Because I had just a person standing there, and I was trying to get his eyes to just move like a normal person. Look back and
Hmm.
forth, look down, look up, look around. So that I could interact with the female character. There was a male character and a female character, and had them talking to each other. Although I didn't. There is apparently an add-on to make them talk, but I didn't
Oh.
want to mess with that.
Huh.
So, so I just had them going bye 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 bye, which was fine. Yeah, because it made it. This is y'all just screwing around anyway. So, but I'm trying to keep my skills sharp, and I'm noticing how hard it is to do just what we do in normal life. We look at each other's eyes. We look at the left eye, then the right eye, then the left eye, then the right eye. Then we look at your mouth because you're saying something. Then you look back at your eyes. Left eye, right eye, left eye, right eye. Then you look off to the distance because you're annoyed or upset. Then you look back at the eyes again. Left eye, right eye. You don't think about all of the patterns that we have until you watch people and watch what they do. Some
It's
people favor one eye. Some people look back and forth between both eyes.
because they can't decide.
Right? And it's like
And
so. It's they're all kind. Well, and I think that's just the nature of humans. We all,
oh yeah, definitely.
it's like you roll the dice. There, you look at both people. You look at people with both eyes at the same time. So there you go.
As your eyes slowly go wider and wider, like a
Right.
chameleon, and just trying to take in everyone. God,
So
3D animation. So 2D and 3D are completely different creatures. We all know this. Well, I just had my first bout of actual character animation last month with 3D animation. And it's easier, but it's also so much more tedious because you have to take into account things that you don't even realize with walking even. Because I know you were talking about how people look at each other, what habits we have, but like even learning how the foot steps forward and how the secondary weights go, and even secondary and third dairy you would even think about taking into account with animation
right.
with just 3D, but then you take into account 2D, and it's so much easier to get those down because you know how things fall when they fall. But with 3D,
Something
it's
just
all
fell.
these. Yeah, that was my one of my markers.
Oh no,
Off
I just
screen.
think it's funny that something fell when you said how things fall.
But yeah, no, it's 2D so much easier because you can draw exactly where you want to draw it when it happens.
Right.
Uh,
But then there's that skill. One of the
mhm.
reasons I'm using this particular program is it's absolutely beta. It's completely beta. So it's full of bugs and it's cranky and it's difficult to use and I'm misusing it for its initial intention and all kinds of stuff. So um, I'm doing what I often do is push things. But one of the things I like about it is it does real time cloth simulation, real time hair simulation.
Which is amazing.
And that's really fun because you set your animation and you have somebody walking and the hair has to sweep the right way, and you
Yep.
see that, and you can see that you're like, I did it wrong. The hair is like, okay, nobody does this. So you're like, meh.
The hair sticks out like tendrils and sways, and it's like, no, you're not supposed to do that. Let's keep this
Right.
thick.
So I mean, it's a different set of skills
Oh
to make
yeah.
animation work in a real time environment like that. But 3D is a completely different set of skills. In 2D,
It's a
I
different
would
beast
just draw the
entirely.
hair moving, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder if we lose that skill.
Yeah.
I know that I've read a number of books by. My favorite ones are the ones that were um, Walt Sheffield. I think it's Sheffield,
Sounds about right.
who was one of the nine old men from Disney,
Yeah.
and he passed away in. I think he passed away in '02, maybe '01. But they compiled all of his handouts because they would train Disney animators. Okay, you've got a degree in art, and okay, your drawings are really pretty, but back to class, guys.
Yeah.
And so,
Go learn the basics, fellas.
right, and so they'd send them back to art class, and they would do all of the same things that we did in all of our art classes.
Mhm.
They would put live models in there. You had to draw the models. You had to do light and dark. You
Yeah.
had to do your values. All of the things that we learn. And then your color theory again and everything like that. And a lot of them would get kind of grumpy about that. They'd be like, "Oh, why am I going through color theory again?" And his
I
whole
have,
thing is
I
that,
have 2 degrees, 2 bachelors. Why
right?
do I need to go back here?
But what he would talk about is he's the one where I have my famous quote that I always talk about where you don't draw nouns, you draw adjectives.
Hmm.
And it's because, and I know that you and I have done this a couple of times where when we do flour sack and stuff like that, you don't flour sack because a flour sack is the noun. And so you actually have to have something else because your noun is already there. And that's why we do flour sack, right?
Yes.
But Walt Sheffield was the one who was the person who embedded in me that we do adjectives, which I hadn't thought of. So that was cool. Um, and when we talk about like how you do these things, that helps direct my artwork whenever I do art. And still, I still try to do an adjective, you know,
Yeah.
because it's a better. I mean, you could just draw, Bob standing there, but what is
But
Bob doing?
standing proudly, standing sullenly, standing angrily,
Right,
just all these different things. You
right,
have to add a
exactly.
little bit of energy into your character. Otherwise, it's just standing there doing nothing. So
It's lifeless, right?
yeah, and no one wants to watch a lifeless little body standing there. Even zombies have characters, and they are undead. So
Right? They're well, and even that has something. I mean, what are they doing? Are they eating brains? Are they shambling? Are they?
yeah,
I mean, you've
their
got a
rocks
list
are
of
like
things.
hunched over.
Yeah.
So at least there's some form to them. At least they're doing something.
Walking Dead has been very useful for those of us that draw, or whenever I have to draw zombies, because I'm just like, I'll just standing impatiently, says Donald. Yes, standing impatiently.
So you're
But
happy. Go.
right, and that's what we'll do in practice. But man, thank you. My thumb needed to pop really badly. Sorry. I hate that as I get older, my joints get stiffer and they don't like to move, and especially my
That's
right
just the way
hand.
of life.
Yeah. Um. So, but Walt Sheffield, I want to say Sheffield, and it's right over there, right behind me on my bookshelf, so I could certainly just wander over there. He wrote two books called Drawing from Life, um, and they are all of his little handouts that he gave his class for when they came into Disney. So you'd join Disney, and he'd say, "Okay, here's handout number one. We start working with adjectives instead of nouns, and changing your thinking. So you're not thinking about drawing Donald Duck. You're drawing walking." you know, because that's what he wanted. He wanted you to think, or gesticulating angrily, because that's what Donald Duck does almost all the time, right?
Yeah. Squawking unknowingly, like just can't understand him.
Right? Just you know, and he's just all over the place, feathers, and
Swing fists.
yep. And you've probably I know that we talk a little bit about flour sack, but that's another thing we do. Um, what we need
I
to
love
do
flower
is
sack.
plan these things better, because I did a
Yes.
horrible a job of planning this one. I'm so sorry. But if we plan for next week or some other week or some week down the road when you're available, which we'll work on offline, we don't have to work on that here.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
You could come back and we could do flour sack, and
Yeah.
we could
And
do
we can
cells.
actually do like, hey, this is how you do the flower sacks, and these are how the characters move, and this is how the arms swing and the arcs, and this is how it flows, and yeah, I'm down for that totally.
That's awesome. Cool. Like you can see me doing the two thumbs up here because I know that I'm delayed by like 10 seconds or something really funny.
Like,
Um, so yeah, we'll start doing more advanced stuff. Like Pepper and I are talking more about paints and physical medium and watercolor and things like that. You and I can do shows on animation and making things move. And I think that'd be great.
that'd be awesome.
And how to do that is a and tell Shauna how Luna made flower sacks. Oh yeah, that's right. I was talking about flour sacks, and I was doing flour sack uh, practice
Hmm.
on my show one time, and Luna, one of the people who watches our show, she started making little clay flour sacks, and she was
Oh,
doing flour sacking. I mean, she was doing it. She was trying to make them talk and move and everything, but she was making them out of clay, and I was like, wow, that's like next level.
that's that's precious.
They were
Oh,
so adorable, and they really
oh,
were, and I was like, see, now that's the way the world should be.
yeah. Let's all make little clay flower sacks. Make the happy little flower sacks.
So she made little teeny statuettes of flour sacks doing different
Oh,
things. It was so cool.
oh, that's
And her cat
precious.
ate some of them because she made them out of the
Oh,
she made them out of the, how we used to do Play-Doh with flour and water and
yeah.
food coloring. That's what she was doing, and her cat ate some, and so she ended up with like half-eaten flour sacks and stuff.
You should do like a Godzilla thing of a cat just chasing down these flower sacks and the cat just no.
Oh, it was very cute. It was
Aw,
a very very funny show. It was awesome. And it was just totally next level. Um,
precious.
so on my show, generally I was doing warm ups at the very beginning, but I'm not doing a warm up
Mhm.
today. But I was talking a little bit, and I'm going to share this information with you because I think you
Mhm.
might find this interesting. I've been on a website called drawabox.com, and
Okay.
it's an art teacher or an ex art teacher or something. But he has what his thing is. He says, I get students who come in who have 30 years of experience but can't draw a line.
Mm-hmm.
And so he does these exercises that are basically training you to draw a line.
Hmm.
Um, so I usually start my show out by going over here to the main line behind me, and
Mm-hmm.
I draw a line, and then I lift my elbow off the table and I draw from the shoulder. We're supposed to be drawing
Yeah.
from the shoulder, and I'll draw from the shoulder and I'll lay down, 4 lines on each line. So I'll draw a single line with a pencil, and then I go
Oh,
back over it
definitely.
with just a normal fine liner, like this Prismacolor right here or whatever. I'm usually
Yeah.
actually just kind of going through whatever ones are in bad shape. So, whichever ones I'm not using right now for inking, um, whichever ones are dying, because you're just gonna, it's just normal copy paper, and I do two short lines that are the width, almost the width of the short end of the paper, and then two long lines that are the width of the long end of the paper. And
Jeez.
recently I have added French curves, and because I've noticed that I'm getting really good at staying on the line and drawing a really solid line, but then I get a curve and it's like
And then throws
so
all everything out of the box, like out the
right.
window.
He levels up at some point in time. You're supposed to draw 1,000 lines or something like that, and then once you
Yeah.
do, you go to actually making boxes, which is where his website comes from. You make boxes and you do 250 of those. Um, and the idea is just to get to the point where the muscle memory is laid in.
Hmm.
Um, and I've been kind of thinking about the whole artist as a, yeah, like holistic artist medicine or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm being weird here, but I keep thinking about how our traditional skills, even if you don't use those, our traditional skills are so useful. And I worry that they're being ejected because of technology. The ability
Well,
to
there's
draw
always
from
going
your
to be that
shoulder.
fear, but I don't think that they'll ever be fully ejected because of how diverse of a culture there is in animation.
I think you're right, but I mean, like, I've met people who did animation who've never even heard of flower sacking. And I'm like, well,
Mm.
okay. So, how do you learn to emote with the body? Because that's the whole point of
So
flower sacking is to be able to emote.
I watch people.
Yeah. And I get a lot of that. And honestly, that's not a bad technique, but it's
Well, no,
kind of like trying to replace your tire without a jack. I mean, you can do it, but it's
but you're
certainly
going to
the
be
hard
finding a
way.
ton and a half worth of just metal
Yeah.
to do that.
It's like it's you can do it, but it's just the hard way. I mean, it's like and I feel like that's what happened is that a lot of us end up with kind of that culture of um, needing to figure out how to do this. So I've been starting every. Maybe I should add a flour sack or two to all of my little random things in the morning,
Nice.
my
Well,
warm
I got
ups.
this. I hear this question that asks, "Do you need to draw in order to animate?" And that's such a peculiar question because that only pertains to 3D animation. But of course, you need to know how to draw. How are you going to plan out your animations? How are you going to plan out the action of the character? Just, it was such a weird question. Do
Yeah, and
you
I
need to draw to animate?
I feel like there's a that's exactly what I'm kind of talking about. I think because you're right there. Do you need to draw to animate? Maybe you don't need to be able to draw, but you need to have all the fundamentals that we got.
Yeah,
I mean, you need to have the
data.
ability to flower sack in one way or another. And maybe you
Hmm.
can't draw Donald Duck, but you need to be able to flower
Yeah,
sack. You need to be able to do all of that
yeah, at
because
least
you,
you need a stick figure.
right. I mean, uh, Randall Moore, no, Randall Monroe. Randall Monroe writes a
Mhm.
comic XKCD. It's all stick figures,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
he
which is
actually
it's great.
can
It's
draw.
wonderful.
you
Yeah,
know, he actually
it's
can.
phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a really, and it shows that no, you don't have to have like the skills to express a story,
Hmm.
but he still has effectively flower sacking going on.
Exactly.
Because he doesn't just have stick figure, blah, 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 other stick figure, blah, 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 stick figure, blah, blah, blah. They're explaining and they're emoting and their hands are moving. And it's actually more complex.
It is.
He does show that he has skills.
And you can actually emote, which
Right.
is it's phenomenal.
His little stick figures actually do stuff. Same thing with Knights of the. No, not Knights. Order of the Stick. Order of the
Yes.
Stick is another one where the characters are extremely simplistic, but they sit there and they talk and they express and they move. And there's motion in what they're doing, which means that he's got some skills underneath there.
And there's like life. It's understandable life in there too. It isn't disjointed. And it also shows that, hey, if you draw a stick figure, it means you can create.
Right.
So.
Right. And I think that's part of what we're I'm hoping you're helping me kind of hone in on what I'm looking for here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I
no, no,
keep
you're
on.
doing great. That's what I mean is
Oh,
you're helping me kind of
oh,
home in on this thought process
oh,
here.
okay.
Cuz you brought up a good point. Do you have to draw to animate? Well, technically speaking, you don't have to draw to animate, but you have to have all those core skills.
Yes.
And there's a bunch of core skills that we use for animation. Um,
It's like the fundamentals. There's squash, stretch, slow in, slow out, um, anticipation. There's like a whole list of them. It's great to tune in on to.
yeah, like you do have to know squash and pull.
Yes.
Um, even though,
Like if you ever do the exercise of the ball bouncing, that's a perfect example, and that's something that all animation teachers teach you to do. Is how the ball drops, you see it stretch out as it drops, and then as it hits, it would compact, and then as it bounces out, it would stretch out again. And that's how you would learn your squash and stretch on your basic form.
right? We did that on the show here once.
Mm.
It was actually kind of fun. I managed to do an entire ball cycle in um, in 1 2 hour show, but it was a
Mm.
very boring show. Watching people do animation is very akin to watching paint dry. So,
I like watching people draw. Of course, I like to watch my watercolors dry, so I
right,
am one of
there's
those
that.
people that like to watch paint dry.
I actually, when I did I was telling you I did that animation. It was akin to Monty Python, and we
Yes.
did that animation in one night. But mostly we did it in one night because neither one of us realized that the sun was rising. And so we
Oh.
started at like 3 when school was over. We went home, went to my apartment, set up the rig, had it ready to
Hmm.
go, and we cut out all the things the night before. To be fair, I mean, everything was cut out the night before.
Wait.
Um, but we were so excited, my buddy and I, we were so excited about this that we just kept going and kept going and kept going. And then we looked outside and the sun was rising. We're like,
Oh, we have to go to school now.
yeah,
That's good.
how did that happen?
Ah, having too much fun over here.
Yeah, we were just having a ball. We were just kind of tootling along, doing
Yeah.
our thing. And neither one of us noticed that we had gone through the middle of the night. And it was mostly because we had to control the lighting on the stage. We had to so everything was closed off. So
Oh
there was
yeah.
no external signal to tell us what the temperature was or what time it was or whatever. And I think that's how you can tell what your calling is. Are you willing to do the drudgery on it? And does it bother you? Doesn't bother me apparently to sit there frame by frame by frame by frame.
Are you willing to do the time sink? That's the biggest question. Are you willing
Right?
to put the time into it? If you are, then congratulations. First step to becoming an animator, doing whatever you want to do in life.
Right. Exactly. And you're willing to watch paint dry. So there you go.
Exactly.
You're supposed to be.
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do. We're all supposed to do this stuff. So
Yes.
I actually kind of like watching my paint dry too. Not gonna lie.
I like seeing it actualized.
Yeah. Well, I'm still not 100% comfortable with watercolors yet. As is
I
obvious,
don't,
seeing as how I was
I don't,
asking you to help me out.
I don't think anyone will have to be fully comfortable with watercolors. There's such a wild mistress.
Well, I likes that part though. I likes that it's goofy and weird. I mean, that adds
Yes.
a. I've spent years upon years upon years trying to herd my lines and my colors and make them uniform and make them because I came from the animation background. That now,
Mhm.
as I grow older, I'm kind of enjoying the chaos. But
You know, same here. You know how analytical I am and how detail oriented I am and how
yeah,
exact I need things to be.
mm,
Well, I started off this sketchbook and I actually have it here. I can show you the example if you'd be up for it.
I am. I'm
Well,
always up for pictures.
so I drew this building because I love architecture and I love figuring out forms because they're so exact. And I basically was told, hey, put down the ruler, just draw the building as you see it, and just do the lines.
Right.
And I wrote down this quote that it's okay if the lines aren't straight, it still looks like a building at the end of the day. And it's a little art therapy. And
Ooh, look
and
at
like
that.
none of the lines, yeah, none of the lines are straight. They're all just like hand drawn. And it just, I was so like disgruntled about it because like, but it needs to be perfect because it's architecture. But no, it still translates as a building. So I totally understand the whole need for them to be perfect, for the lines to be perfect.
Right, right.
But it's okay to let go.
But it's hard.
Doesn't
It's so hard. It's
it
so
is,
hard.
especially when you're in the animation mindset and want things to flow perfectly and smoothly, and I need to add on this other frame. And no, it's okay. I'm 64 frames in, but if I add this other one, it'll flow very smoothly and it'll be fine.
Right.
That's when you've gone too far.
That's when you jumped off the cliff. I
Yes.
find that doing all the steps helps me on that one.
Hmm.
I can't add a frame because I've got two keyframes and I'm coming from one key and I'm headed to the other key and there's only 12 frames here. So there's nothing I can do. I
You
can't
have to block in your frames.
right?
And then once you block it in, you can get all the extra stuff in there, but it has to be this limited a bit.
But this is where the keys are.
Yes.
The keys are at 1 minute, 4 seconds, and 12 frames. I add the next key is at 1 minute, 5 seconds, and one frame. There's nothing I can do.
Exactly.
I am because otherwise I'll do exactly that. This needs two more frames.
Oh, I can smooth this out. Let's add like 6 more frames.
And then all of a sudden your animation goes from 15 frames a second to 36 frames a second for only 2 seconds.
This hair tearing out. It's madness. It's maddening.
What are you doing?
What am I doing with my life? I don't know, but it's
What have
beautiful.
I done with my world?
Ah, my literal world. It's on fire. I drew the fire on there.
I always think about that with. That's another thing. Modern monitors are running very hot. And I've noticed, speaking of frame rates, um, so traditionally, film has run at 24 frames a minute, or
Mhm.
second, 24 frames a second. And that's traditional. And it comes from literally the speed of shutters back in the days of early movie making and how fast the shutter was able to open and close. They made it, they pushed it to a point where the eye couldn't really see the difference and then left it there.
Yep.
And so,
And, and then innovations came along and they're like, oh, 36 frames per second. It makes it a bit smoother. And they've gone up to 64 frames per second, which makes it incredibly smooth, but also gives a slight uncanny valley vibe to it.
right, you have to double your workforce.
Yeah.
But video, like television, runs at 30 frames a second and actually runs at 29.9 frames a second, which,
Yep.
well, we can go into that one for a long. Luckily, they are abandoning drop frame. I am so happy
Oh,
they're abandoning
good.
drop frame. They don't need it anymore. HDTV doesn't require.
Yep.
I mean, HDTV is a literal.
It's time to take a quick break.
Oh, it's time for us to take a break. We should stand up. We're gonna get up and stand
Oh,
up and stretch, stretch, stretch.
oh,
The computer told us to stand up and stretch.
okay. Fine.
Walk
Stand
around,
up.
walk around, walk around.
Ah, stretch.
The idea also, so this is back to the whole artist sort of concept.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think we should all do is stand up every hour. Especially since I'm one of those people that will, in fact, sit at my desk for 4 hours and then wonder why my feet don't work anymore.
Yeah, or why my knees hurt.
Yeah, mine too. My knees, my back. You are not as old as me.
Okay. Enough.
That's not actually, that's not actually a bad thing. Okay, sitting back down. Okay. Oh, I feel much better. I as this show has been evolving, I've been running it every weekday since April.
Oh, wow.
And I have been. It was my thought for what we. So what had happened was Pepper and I were doing these Friday artist check-ins. He
Hmm.
contacted me in January and said, hey, you know, I want to get together every Friday and just check in because I need accountability.
Oh,
And I was
yeah.
like, yeah, that's cool because I kind of need accountability too. And so we started in January doing this check in where we would contact each other. Well, then COVID hit. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, I'm already rigged for video. We've been broadcasting every Friday since January 1. So, um, I've already got, at that point in time, I had about, what, 9, 10, 11 shows under my belt. And so I was like, well, I'll just go every morning for the same
Yeah.
reason. It's accountability, right? I'll draw my art right here, and everybody can watch me draw, and I get my work done on my workload because I got to be drawing from 10 to noon, whether I like it or
Oh,
not.
definitely.
But as time has gone on, I thought I've had people join my show and then ask me questions about how art works. And I'm like, you know what I should do is just bring on other people sometimes and say, hey,
Yeah,
Shauna,
definitely.
how does art work? Pepper, how
How
do you
does the
make
thing
paints?
do the thing? Well,
Right? So, anyway, you and I are both in much the same field. Um, and that's the thing is, like, I talk to Pepper, and watercolor paints are absolutely new to me. I've been using watercolors
mm,
now for like all of 2 years, maybe. And I started with Oi Bob, another artist friend of ours, who said, you should be using watercolors. It'd be a lot simpler. As I struggled with my Copics here. And he was like,
that's
and a lot cheaper.
yeah,
Because those Copics are expensive. So
yeah,
I
they
went
are.
and bought like a cheap set of watercolors for like $10. And it was a bunch of little the little cakes. But
Yep,
it had
the
cool
little
colors in it.
cans.
Mm-hmm. They had cool colors in it, so I was going with that. Um, and I did those for a while, and I still lay down way too much paint for
Huh.
what I'm after. It doesn't come out as pastel-y as I want it to be. I'm a big fan of the Ghibli pictures that Miyazaki put out for all of his pre stuff. Or one of my favorites is Haruhiko Mikimoto, who was the artist who did Macross, and
Okay.
and he's a character designer, and that's all he does is character design. He only recently got bamboozled into doing the manga, um,
Oh no.
but he up until like literally 2004 or 2005, he was just a character designer. So all of the characters from Macross don't come from a manga. It's actually kind of a rare thing. It's not made by a manga artist. There was no previous
Oh,
manga to that anime. There's now manga, but it came in
like
after.
as it does. I've never seen it, so I don't have an actual frame of reference to add to this conversation. It's like, oh, this is fascinating. Huh.
And that's where I come from is that world. And so I've been looking at Mikimoto's paintings because that's what he'll do. The same thing as all concept artists over there. They use watercolors to mock up their pages.
Mhm.
So here's what we want this scene to look like, and it looks so ethereal. It looks so uh, special. I don't know how to even really say it. I don't have a word for it.
So otherworldly.
Right.
So yeah.
And everything that I do is colored by animation colors, and I actually even use animation techniques to shadow and shade and things like that. I'm very much an animation artist, and so
Cell shading.
everything
Heck
is
yeah.
yeah. So everything's cell shaded, and everything is. I don't know how to do gradients very well, and you know what I mean. It's like there's a set of skills here that I'm missing, and that's one of the reasons I've gone to watercolors is that I really kind of want to be able to express
Get that.
in that kind of way.
Yeah, get the gradients, get the blending, the shading. Yeah, totally understand.
Yeah, I mean it's a great thing. You know what? I actually think I can. I'll show you what I'm talking about here because I keep all of my books right back here for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean it's easy for me to just walk over to the bookshelf now. I'm so excited to have a bookshelf behind me and pick up stuff like this, right? So this is Mikimoto's illustration, the book. I've literally had this book since 1994. I know because that's the date on the sticker on the back, which it's not even
Ooh,
focusing in on, but I've still got the sticker. And this thing has lived with me this entire time,
that is pretty. I'm seeing it now. That is such a
right?
nice cover.
And it really is. And some of the
Ooh,
stuff that he's got in here, it's just ethereal. Um, I mean, I don't even know really how to say anything other than this is just a magical. All of
wow.
the work is so pretty,
That's beautiful. I love the gradation. I love the colors that he uses too.
right? I mean, I'm trying to find some of the other pieces that I love so much, and he does do normal cell shaded illustration, right? I mean, he'll do the
Yeah,
normal cell shaded stuff, but it's not. I mean, that's obviously done
it's a
with some kind
different
of pen and
piece.
ink.
Yeah, it's a different creature entirely.
Yeah,
Looking from cell shading and watercoloring.
right. And this is all of these pieces here are. Oh, there we go. Sort of. This is for animage. This piece here. And it's got the Yamato and a number of other ships and stuff like that from that style of animation. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
this is like the guy that I'm trying to mimic. If I could just get into the colors like this,
Yeah.
and he does a drawing course in the back here. All the steps he does, and strangely enough, I don't think I've ever actually looked at this since I started painting watercolors. Um,
Oh, cool. It's like a little storyboard.
yeah, I mean, he says starts with a light blue pencil, draw
Mm-hmm.
several rough sketches to decide upon the design.
Yep.
And then he says select a favorite design and a normal black pencil, go over the blue lines of the character's face and other areas to get the general feel. And then you use a light board because this is 1994.
Of course.
Yeah, you use a light board to bring through on the ink, and then he goes through and he says drafting tape is used in place of the
Mhm.
borders. This way the paint won't bleed outside and the edges will stay straight.
So does it say what weight of pencil to use? Like HB
He
or
says a number
88
F on the Japanese scale.
F?
Um,
Okay. It's a little bit lighter than an HB.
yeah,
So,
and then
yeah.
he comes back in and he says he goes in with a 2B to completely color the
Okay.
back of the enlargement, or he enlarges it, I guess. So he
Hmm.
brings the size up. Um, and then he says, put it on an illustration board. I use BB Kent brand. A
Huh.
hard F pencil is used to go over the lines and leave the image on the board below. So I guess he's
Okay.
imprinting to the board below. That's interesting.
I guess it's a specialty thing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, I guess it's who you are on this, and the kind of person you are. And then he says, using the lines copied from step 5, draw the main lines with a burnt brown pencil.
So like a sienna or
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
sepia.
Yeah,
Sepia
like a
would be the
sepia
proper
tone
term.
of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah. After the main lines are drawn, use an eraser to remove the lines transferred from step 5.
Huh. Cool. All right.
And then he says when the surface is, or then he pre-wets the paper, which is wet on wet. So this is all wet on wet, I guess.
Ooh. See, with that, I would pre-wet the surface you would want to do. So if you want to work on just the hair, then pre-wet the hair surface and then go from there. That way you keep your area tight.
Yep. Well, he says a brush is used to distribute water upon the board. This allows the paint to spread evenly. And then he says when the surface is about half dry, you apply the paint.
Oh, huh.
And he says when doing
I
character
think,
drawings, I start with the flesh tones since they're the most delicate. He uses gouache. For
yep,
shading, he uses brilliant orange and yellow ochre with peacock blue and raw umber mixed in.
nice. That's a really nice flesh tone.
Well, and what I love is I've never read this since I started painting, so now I'm reading through it going, man, he literally is giving me like every last bit. all,
Yep,
all the details right here. It says after the
yep.
skin is
All the
done,
dirty details.
draw parts of the face, such as the eyes and the mouth, close to completion. Gray marker is used for the eyes. The detailed
Yeah.
parts of the pupils are done with marker. And then after coloring the body, the character is nearly complete. Apply water to individual parts being painted and apply colors in order of light to dark when shading.
Hmm.
Huh. Huh. I mean, like, I'm looking at all of this, and I mean, this step by step is literally this piece. So he's talking about this piece on the cover. I mean, that's what this step by step is. In the end, he ends up with that piece.
That's cool.
So you
That's
watch
that's
him.
really cool that he's working step by step with you.
Yeah, yeah, and then here's the full up for it.
Very cool.
Yeah, no kidding, man. So then we talk about how he did this with zipatones. It's kind of hard to see, but all of the shading is toned, so you can see all the
Yeah,
dots and the tone. I
like
love
half
stuff like this.
tones and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I bought this book in 1994. Probably maybe early 95, but either way, I mean, I've had that book for now quite a few years, just sitting there, and I didn't realize how much of an awesome thing it is. It's out of print now. This book is so, and so I'm kind of like, I guess I'll just end up photographing these 2 pages and how he does it,
I
because I
mean,
don't
you could
think I
do it
want
that
to
way.
risk putting it flat in the scanner and breaking its spine.
Yeesh. Yeah, no kidding. Nice work like that. You don't want to ruin that.
Yeah, I mean, you can still get it in Japan, but it's Japanese. So
Mhm.
I can read Japanese, but that doesn't necessarily mean everybody can. Um,
Exactly.
and so it's not useful to. And I'm sure he's using words that I've never heard before. I'm not fluent in Jap. Oh, I'm fluent in Japanese, but I'm not super proficient. That's another thing we talk about when I'm over there is like people who are fluent in a language doesn't necessarily mean they know everything. That just means they speak fluidly.
Exactly. Yeah, like the little connotations that pop up, you wouldn't even recognize those.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
you can catch the obvious stuff in languages, but it's hard to catch all of the little like weird things. If they say something like "the boy that cried wolf," we know what that means, but goodness, the
Like,
Japanese version of that, I'd never know. You
yeah.
know, they'd be talking about when Shogo went and attacked the samurai, and you'd be like,
When the Fire Nation attacked.
"Yeah," he'd be like, "I don't know what you're talking about." Um, yeah, it's kind of funny that there was an episode of Star Trek about that,
Huh.
Darmok, which was totally about that. Anyway, so we have wandered off of animation
We
because
have.
this is the nature of the beast. Um, so I know that you've been working really hard to hone your skills set, which I didn't do. I noticed that I'm like, I didn't do that, which explains why I have only worked on like random weird stuff. And you actually probably will have a much better career than me.
Ooh, not yet, but I'm hoping.
Well,
Fingers
yeah.
crossed. Hopefully.
I mean, I guess
Hmm?
all of us artists are sort of limited to whether the dice roll in our favor or not.
Yeah. We're all in sort of a limbo, especially with COVID. Hmm.
Yeah, well, um, that brings us back to what we were talking about. Because you
Yeah.
were talking about something about how artists are sort of, disregarded a little bit there. Like, even if we do have a mad amount of skill, people still
Yeah.
want to pay us $2 and a cookie for it. But it took you
Especially,
5 minutes. Why should I pay you $20 for it?
yeah. You kicked this out in like 3 minutes. I don't need to pay you $20 for this.
Right? And and that actually, I've been thinking a lot about that because my going rate for commissions is actually pretty cheap, relatively cheap. It's only $40, which is still. I mean, I noticed that Chaz is charging 100, totally
Mm.
fair. Nothing wrong with that. He's a much more advanced in the culture artist. He's been out there further than me.
Yeah.
More people know about him. So his artwork commands a higher price. Um, but it still takes me 2 hours to do
Yeah.
a commission, even at my highest speed. If I just, you know, nose to the grindstone, buckle down, pedal to the metal, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, I can probably do a commission in an hour, but probably not.
Yeah, the pieces I've been kicking up for this month's challenge, it's been taking me about 3 to 4 hours, depending on how complex the piece is.
Right, right. It's dedication to the time. Um, and I mean, if I were to say, "Oh, Shauna, would you please, draw me Mickey Mouse," and you say, "Okay, I'll charge $15," then it's $5 an hour for that.
Yeah.
I think people don't realize that.
Yeah. And I tend to charge more so for commissions just because it takes me so long to do them
Yeah,
and my quality is up there. And it's like, you guys, you don't understand. The prices are actually legit. Like, they're good prices. I'm not trying to mess you up or anything.
yeah. I noticed that every so often I'll get, "Hey, will you draw this character?" "Yeah, it's $40." $40. That's so expensive.
What? But this guy over there can do it for less. But they can't do it the way I do it. But he
Yeah,
can
and
do
I'm
it
not.
over there.
And I don't feel like I feel like our value is based on a the quality. I feel like your work is still a higher quality than mine. I'm still trying to achieve that line there.
Your quality's pretty good though.
Well, I
Like, don't
appreciate
undermine
that.
yourself.
I'm not saying I'm bad. Just uh, yeah.
No,
And Donald says he
I,
can never afford $100. So
yeah,
I know, and that's what's so sad is like, um, but and you think about, well, $40 for 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. You know, it's kind of like,
that's not bad.
yeah. I mean, that's why I try to do things that are useful for people, like characters for their games. People are more likely to pay $40 if they know they're going to be stuck with this character for a couple of
Oh,
years.
definitely.
You know, and that works a lot better.
Yes.
So so it's kind of one of those things, and it's hard. It's hard to make a living that way, especially since the other problem is I'll get like 2 commissions a month. It's not like I'm just sitting here doing a commission after a commission after a commission for 40 hours a week. That's
Oh
the
yeah.
other problem,
No, there's some people that do that, and like praise to them, they are amazing, and I
right?
would love to do that. But like, how you can get the clientele? That's
Yeah.
awesome.
How do you sleep? Um,
Yeah.
and I guess it's like anything. Your arm just gets used to it. Your hand gets used to it. You
Yeah.
get used to just sitting there and buckling down for 40 hours a week. You know,
You get used to drawing the same picture with animation, cycling back. Yeah.
and now we come back to the where we were talking about before. Totally cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's something I always think about, and I have that kind of complaint. That's kind of one of my purposes now here is, let's respect ourselves and respect each other. Respect
Exactly.
your artists and respect yourself. And so,
And also charge accordingly because if you undercharge yourself, you're really ruining it for the rest of us, which
right.
kind of sucks, but it is what it is.
I know that usually when we're at conventions, like if you and I were tabling next to each other,
Mm-hmm.
I try to equalize my prices for that very reason.
Oh,
And
okay.
and it's, well, I mean, no, I mean, really, honestly, that's what I think a lot of people do. I know not everybody does, because of course that's, it's humans. We
Yeah.
humans do whatever we want to do because we're humans. Um, But but yeah, I mean that's what I definitely try to do is to equalize. So if you're charging $60 a commission, I'll charge $60 a commission. You know, um, if
It's
if I'm tabling by myself, I'll charge
yeah.
40.
Yeah, there's such a wide margin figuring out what to charge for your work. It's stupid crazy trying to figure that out.
It's almost, gosh, I almost think we need some kind of union. I mean, not
Yes.
not in the annoying sense, but the good unions, the one that say,
Yeah.
the ones that say something to the effect of, okay, all artists should charge $50 for a commission or whatever, $100 for a
Or
commission,
or
or
be paid like this base rate amount, and then after that point you charge X amount per hour or something like that.
right, something that would be useful and fair, and then that way we're not competing with each other. Because no,
Yeah.
it's bad. It's hard enough to get jobs to begin with at a convention. It's worse if you're competing. You know, I feel like people with art, they'll just be like, "Oh, I don't like Guy's art. But I do like Shauna's art, so I'll get a commission from her." And the next person will be like, "I don't like Shauna's art, but I like Guy's art," and they'll get a commission from him. And so it becomes a door if you're doing commissions, and all I really want is a picture of Wolverine, and I don't care who does it.
Yeah.
Then it's a problem because then they'll come to me for the commission. I actually don't want to do you know I
Well,
don't want to do
that's I've
Wolverine or
actually
whatever.
caught myself like pointing out to like customers like, hey, if you go like the next style over, like three tables down, there's this really cool artist over there that can do close to the style that you like.
Right.
And I'll actually catch myself pointing people out to other artists. So
Which is totally true. I mean, like I have always been manga style. I mean, obviously here is my inspiration, right? So I've always been manga style, and so people come up to me and want Wolverine, and I'm like, I can do it for you, but he's gonna look kind of girly.
gonna be a little weird, but I can do it
You
for
little
you.
boy, little cute little boy Wolverine, and
Let's really break that nose.
right, and it's like, what you probably should do is go get Wolverine from that guy over there.
Yeah,
Um,
that guy over there is like stylized in X-Men, and he's like super awesome. You should go check him out.
and that's the way it should be. We should
Oh
be
yeah.
rerouting people back and forth. Oh, somebody comes up to that guy and says, "Well, can you draw? I don't know, the princess from Gatchaman?" And oh well, the better person to do that would be Guy over there. And then have him shipped
Unless you
over.
want a really just stylized girly princess, then heck yeah.
Right. Some people have done like really cool things with. I mean, like I saw Alex Ross did Gatchaman once, and man, I mean, because it's Alex Ross,
Oh
but
yeah.
it was still kind of cool, you know, to see G Force as rendered super realistic, as only
My
Alex
my.
Ross could do, you know. So it's kind of cool in that manner. Um, that's a thing. It's a thing. I don't remember where I was going with this one. Other than yes, artists try to synchronize with your neighbors. You know,
Yes. Synchronize with your neighbors, look out for each other, fight the good fight together, and just create art.
so Shauna and I have both tabled in the local Denver scene. By the way, if you're wondering why we're talking about tabling, that's another thing that we've done. Has gone out and tabled. We've tabled individually and tabled for Red Team Go, which was our like
It was our
art
it
group.
was our communal group like meeting grounds with other artists.
Yeah, so we've started a new group we're trying to kind of get launched called Quasar Art Collective, QAC, Quack.
Hmm.
So it's we're going to try to kind of do that. Not trying to run Red Team Go off or anything like that,
Oh no.
but I mean like Red Team Go is sort of dissolving a little bit, and so I
Yeah,
kind of
for a
wanted to
little
start
while.
doing this Quasar Art Collective thing, which would be sort of all of us artists without It's like the Denver art scene artists, really.
Yeah, the drinking draws.
Yeah, and its mission statement is to help artists be better artists. You know, which I kind of am getting into with this show, helping artists be better artists. Get up and move. It's been 1 hour.
Exactly. Draw what you enjoy drawing.
Draw
Like
from the
that's
shoulder.
yeah. Draw words healthy, build those healthy drawing habits.
Right. Draw flour sacks.
Yes.
Flour sacks
We're
are
gonna
good even for the comic book artists.
yes. Let's comic book some flour sacks. Let's make those dynamic poses. Great for building up dynamic poses too.
So next time you're on, we should practice flour sacking. That would be so much
Yeah.
fun.
Yes. And then we can take it a step further and like do the jumping pose, but like do it from like a low Dutch camera angle. So like we could show that as well, see how the flour sack flies at that point. Like we
Worm's
could
eye
have some fun.
view. Worm's eye view flour sacking.
Yes. Which
Bird's
I
eye view
actually
flour
have some
sacking.
storyboards of a sack animatic I did, if you'd like to see.
I would love to see. All art is
Yay!
awesome.
Okay, so it's a pseudo flour sack. It's a let's see. Okay, so I had this technique I was doing for a little bit, where I would take a pose like I would okay. So there'd be a script line, and then I would try to figure out what would be the best way to draw that line, and I
Okay.
would do different compositions. And then I would then do the different lighting sources, and then at that point I would do the actual flower sack image in full rendering.
Wow. I
And
love the
so,
way you organize everything, by the way.
and so I have one page.
I see.
So there's that. And there is 2 pages, and then I have the final 3 pages.
Yay!
So stuff like this I would love to really delve into because I could go into this type of process
Right.
the next time we do this.
I think that'd be great. Um, really, today was going to be just introducing you to the show so that we can kind of get adjusted. Because everybody has to have that first show where everybody's awkward and stuff. So,
And trying to figure out, oh, this is how we're going to be talking, and okay.
yeah. So, it's a thing. It's a
Yeah,
thing.
it
Um,
is.
so, yeah, there are a lot of things. We were talking on Thursday and Friday of last week a little bit about imposter syndrome too,
Yeah.
which is something that I think a lot of us suffer from. And um, I always feel like somewhere along the line, somebody's going to find out that I'm not really a good artist. That feeling that's like just kind of pervasive. You
I
know.
get that a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
I totally understand the struggle, and I think that's one that we all have.
And it's one of those ongoing problems for all artists. We all have somewhere along the line. And I feel like actually it's true of a lot of people. I'm sure that's a very human trait. It has nothing specific to do with artists. I'm sure there are welders out there that think that somewhere along the line they're going to discover that they've been doing bad welds the entire time.
Well, I think it also correlates with your confidence in your craft and who you are as a person. If you
Right.
have confidence in yourself, then there's less imposter syndrome you have going on.
I agree. And I think that it may be part and parcel of what we were talking about earlier on the show, where we were saying that you're not respected for necessarily what it is, and it's very hard to tell whether you're proficient or not,
Yeah.
right? Because we can look at artwork and say that's good artwork and that's bad artwork, but Jackson Pollock was a famous artist, and all he really did was dump paint onto the canvas.
Yeah, and slap paints and So, I
So,
mean, you find your niche too. You find your groove, and it also helps take away the imposter syndrome if you actually find the grouping that actually fully enjoys your work for what it is.
right?
There's a sort of genuineness to it. If you don't feel you're being genuine with your work or genuine with what you put out, then there's always going to be a more risk of that imposter syndrome hiking up.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I kind of I think that there's a connection there between those two. I think that you're going to find imposter syndrome and the fact that artists are not. Uh, I don't want to say that we're not respected. See you later, Donald. Have a good day. It was
I
good to have you
don't.
here. Bye bye.
I,
We'll be back tomorrow. Well, I'll be back tomorrow. We've got work to do tomorrow. Anyway, so I worry a lot about imposter syndrome, and I feel like that's a feedback loop. You know, I've
well,
been thinking a lot about things like Elon Musk saying that within the next 20 or 30 years, there will be more people than jobs. And we're going to have to
yeah,
figure out, we're going to have to change the concept of if you don't have a job, it's your fault, and therefore you don't
that you're
deserve to
not
have a house.
successful in life because you don't fit into these requirements that society's put onto you.
Yeah.
And then there's also the comparing yourself to others too. There's a lot of the imposter syndrome of, hey, if I'm not as good as this person over here, then I'm not really good in the system.
Right. And we have a culture that's tied towards your worth from how much money you make. You know,
Yeah,
you're worth more if you're a billionaire. And we have a system that operates like that, and I get that. And all of us artists generally work at almost no money, and that's just the
yeah,
nature of things.
yeah.
It's
That's why
so the nature of things,
I always tell people, hey, I'll work for you. You just gotta pay my bills and give me food, and I'll do whatever you want me to do. And
right?
yeah,
It's
this
so true. Um,
is a pretty deal.
yeah, and people that's back to what people expect from you. I mean, they expect you to do the work for $5, and you're like, $5 gets me a candy bar downstairs, and that's it.
Or exposure. Exposure isn't gonna pay my rent. What do you
Yep,
expect me to do with all this exposure?
you have died of exposure.
Just gonna say.
It's an Oregon Trail joke. I actually have a
Yeah.
screenshot of you have died from exposure, which I throw to anybody who says, "I'll get if you'll do this for exposure, then yada yada yada." Then I
Yeah.
post that. Just I don't even bother to respond. I just stick the picture. You have
Yep.
died of exposure,
It's all you can do to that.
right? And it's the Oregon Trail one. It's a good joke. Um, so yeah, I think about a lot of these things that befall us as artists. I mean, we have kind of a thing we have to work on here, you know.
Well, it's also finding your own voice, which is such a hard thing to do, especially with requirements of animation nowadays. You have to fit into this, and unless you're a director, you have to fall in line with what the style of the show is, or the voice of the show, or the voice of the project you're working on.
Right.
And you lose yourself, and that also feeds into the imposter syndrome because it's like, well, if I'm not creating my own thing, then what am I doing?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. It's weird. It's weird all the things that we kind of have to navigate. You know,
Mhm.
it's fascinating.
And it's a
So
lot of mental health too. You gotta do stuff that helps your mental health because without that, you're just beating your face into the wall like, am I doing this right?
all right, because if you don't have your mental health, what have you really got?
Exactly. Got nothing.
So, have you seen the meme that's going around that has Wesley on the machine and Count Rugen says, "I've just sucked one year of your life away," and Wesley goes, "Was it 2020?"
I haven't seen that, but that sounds great.
I'm like, I'm like, yeah, that would be a good one to get rid of. Take 1 year away, please. Take 2020.
Just wipe that slate off the table, please.
Yeah. Oh man. However, it is good to be able to do this. I mean, I'm glad that we've got this ability. We're
Oh,
we're
definitely.
together and we're actually hanging out, even though Red Team Go doesn't hang out much,
Yeah.
and stuff, which is kind of sad, but that's okay.
Yeah. This is
Anyway,
cool too.
yeah, I don't. Do you have any closing thoughts? I think we're gonna roll to the end of this show here. My
Oh,
kid's out of, well, he's out of school in about 10 minutes for lunch,
okay.
and so I'm going to go downstairs and yesterday I had to take the day off so that I could follow him through the school day,
Oh,
and
definitely. You know.
yeah, and so I can
Yeah.
make sure he's got all the buttons pushed and everything like that.
Mhm.
And Thursday, we've got to take the day off as well. So this is kind of a short week for me. Some weeks are full, like 2 hour blocks every day, Monday through Friday, and then some weeks are like this one where they're all broken up because of something, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with my kids. So if you've got
Oh, definitely.
anything you want to close on here, we can certainly close on a statement if you want to. You got anything to think about there?
When you create items, remember to keep your voice in mind because that is who you are, and that's how you're going to identify yourself with your clients or with your customers or
Right.
with your audience. You have to keep your voice in mind because all of that will help curve any negative thoughts you may or may not have going forward.
Right. I agree. I agree. That's a good point.
So don't lose your voice. Fight for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a good one. That's like something to think about there. That's a ponderable.
Yeah. Otherwise, stay healthy, keep safe,
All right.
and
Keep
be
going. Keep.
be happy.
Yes. Keep your eyes on the stars. Keep moving up.
Exactly. Fight for your dreams. Because if you
Sweet.
aren't fighting them, no one else will.
Right? Right? Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really
It
do
has been
appreciate it.
lovely. Thank you
I,
for inviting me on, Guy.
I feel like I kind of talked over you a couple of times. I'm sorry about that.
It's
I
all
talk over
good.
everybody, but I'm trying to not. Trying to
Well,
be more.
you're the host, so that comes with the territory. You're allowed to talk it over from time to
Yeah, you're probably right.
time. Well, it's been
Anyway,
lovely.
it's been great having you. I look forward to us doing the flower sacking. We shall do that.
Yeah. We
And
will talk about getting an idea for that later on, whenever you're comfortable.
and we can actually start doing a series of shows about animation. I think that'd be
Ooh,
wonderful because I think there's a lot that we could talk about. I mean, if nothing else, making cells would be fun. You know,
yeah.
getting together and just actually doing a cell from start to finish would be great.
Ooh, that would be
Um,
wonderful, actually.
wouldn't it be fun? I've got a camera mounted above my main line back here. You can't see it easily because it's a black on black thing. But I've got a camera on my main line, and I can switch by clicking the little button over here. I can switch over to the main line, and you can see there on the screen that and then I switch back.
Yeah.
So we actually tried with Pepper to do a dual show sort of thing. It was kind of complicated because you had to have two call-ins. Like
Yeah.
you'd call in with one camera, and then your desk camera would call in, so that they could be put up on the screen here. But I'm
I
curious.
might need to figure out a rig like that because I don't currently have a rig set up like that, but I can figure out something. I'll just need some time to do so.
Yeah, I mean, really, I ended up taking my microphone stand over there, which
Hmm.
had the C clamp sort of microphone
Yeah,
holder, and I just stuck my phone in it like that,
very good.
and it worked.
Heck yeah.
And then I just used the microphone stand and just bent it so that it was aiming at the. For some reason, the restream thing crashed, but only on
Ah,
my camera. So it only crashed this camera. So I
oh
couldn't
no.
use the overhead camera because it wouldn't see it. So
Hmm.
I just called in on my phone. But it kept my
Very good.
microphone, so I still had good audio. I just didn't have any video.
Yeah, that's how it works sometimes.
It's a thing. I don't know how this world works sometimes. I'm like, I don't know
Come
why you're
here,
doing that. Why are
Ashley.
you doing that? It doesn't make any sense.
Oh,
There you go.
this is my baby Ashley.
Hello. If George was here, he'd be like batting at the
Oh,
screen, because that's what George does. He'd be like, "Oh, I will play with the cat."
here we go.
He
Well,
actually has been known to jump up on the table right here and attack the screen. It's been very funny.
duh.
So, okay, well,
Well,
we're gonna wrap the show up here in just a second. Oh, you're gonna give me George, huh? Here's George.
aw,
That's George. George has been known to
aw.
attack the screen from time to time, and
Who's
so there's that.
baby?
And the other cat just went by me, so the other cat, he's
Aw.
like, wait, I should chase the other cat. No, don't chase the other cat. It's fine.
Oh, he's so precious.
So George is a polydactyl too. It's kind of hard to see,
Ah,
but he's got an extra toe.
oh, sweet
So
baby.
he he and I hang out here a lot, and he'll sometimes get up onto the monitor and attack things on the monitor. He especially likes to attack my mouse. So
Aw,
anyway,
cutie.
he is who he is. So he's like, this is kind of good. This is cool. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me today, Shauna. I really
Of
do appreciate it.
course.
I like the
It's been
fact that every
wonderful.
time I say your name, I have to think. We were just talking about this yesterday. I have to give you a nickname so I can remember your name, because I don't remember anybody's name until I give them a nickname. So we'll call you Bob or something, and then that'll be the name.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just call me Oi while we're at it.
Anyway, so that's why you're getting that pause every time I'm like, "Thank you for joining me, Shauna."
It's all good.
And what's so funny is I know who you are. I see who you are. Kai, I am still broadcasting. Thank you. You're not supposed to be in here at all. Go that way.
Should probably wrap this up. It's been a wonderful, Guy, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about the next show I'm going to be on with you.
Yes, we'll do that. We'll get together, and it'll be cool, and we'll plan stuff, and maybe, I don't know, can Gyrie's order cells? I don't know. We should find that out,
We do. We'll talk about it. I'll figure something out. I'll talk to my manager about it.
right? There's got to be something we can do here on this one.
Oh, definitely. I know there's stuff we have. I just need to figure out with him. So.
Yeah, we have to figure out what we're doing. What are we doing? Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much for joining me, and I will talk to you later. And for everybody who's watching, keep your eyes on the stars, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.
Bye.